All right. Good evening, guys, and welcome to the JavaScript Simplified course. So far we've covered a lot, starting from um, variables. What is JavaScript? Variables, data types, values. Basic operations, operators. Um, type coercion and conversion, truthy and falsy value. Then we even looked at conditional statement last week. We looked at if else statement, multiple if else statement, nested if else statement, switch statement. We looked at all on conditioning except one, which is ternary operator, and that's what we're going to be starting with today. Then afterwards, we'll look at function, the three basic or important function. All right, so those are the things we're going to be looking at today. All right. So let's move on. So I already have a folder here called class 4, index.html, script.js. All right. So I'm going to make, as usual, the folder available for you guys. So let's go straight to the point. Ternary operator. Where am I? Yeah, ternary operator. And also, I've made this JavaScript note available to you. I sent it to you on the group, the JavaScript Simplified group, so you can make reference to it there, download it, and can read it at your convenience. All right, so now what we looked at last week, switch statement, sorry, conditional statement. Let us look at an expression of it today. So here, the ternary operator, often referred to as the conditional statement, sorry, conditional operator, is a concise way to express conditional statement in many programming languages. It takes three operands. Number one, a condition followed by two expressions. So its syntax typically looks like this: a condition, expression, and expression two. So if the condition is true, then the expression one will be executed. But if the condition is false, expression 2 will be executed. All right. So here it says if the condition evaluates to true, expression 1 is evaluated and returned. If the condition evaluates to false, expression 2 is evaluated and returned. All right. So let's use a simple example here. Um, let's look at one of the example we did in class 3. That should be coming. I'm coming. Okay, this part here. Customer's age, John Doe, if the person is eligible to drink alcohol or not. All right, please hold on. All right, so let's let's look at this typical example here. Let's say we have um like a condition whereby above you have to be from 18 years old and above for you to be able to um you know drink alcohol or take alcohol. So let's look at it using if else statement. So here we can say cons let customer let's see, customer age equals, probably let's make it 12. Then here we'll say, if what am I doing? I said const and let. I noticed the error. So I say if customer age is greater, sorry, if, yeah, of course I'm correct. If customer age is greater or equals to 18, then the person, so you consider log, you're an adult or you can drink beer, you are qualified to take alcohol. Alcohol. So let's do a little emoji there. Let's say beer. But if the person is underage, less than 18 years, then we'll say consider log, sorry, you are not qualified to take alcohol. All right, so let's see what we get from our console here. So if you come here, you see, sorry, you are not qualified to take alcohol. All right, let me cross check again if I'm still recording. All right, I am. So, so here we have you are not qualified to take alcohol. All right, fantastic. So now what we have here, this is if else statement, but there's a way we can convert this if else statement to a ternary operator. There's a way we can convert it to a ternary operator such that it's going to have this syntax: a condition, an expression, and what as two expressions. So now with ternary operator, it actually helps us to assign each of the expression to what, to a variable. So if the variable, if the condition evaluates to true, then this expression here can be assigned to what, to a variable, and we can use the variable to get what, the value that has been assigned to it. You get that now, which cannot happen in using if else statement. All right, last week we talked about the difference between statement and expression. All right, and I said one difference between statement and expression is that the expression will always result to what, a value. All right, we always result to a value. So let us see how we can convert this from if else statement to ternary operator. All right, so let's do it here. Ternary operator. All right, so yeah, I can do something like, since I can do something like cu- customer age, if it's greater or equals to what, 18, then a question mark, because we are following the syntax that we have here. You see, the syntax of a ternary operator, you have first of all the condition, then the expressions. So expression one is will be conditionally rendered if the condition is true. Expression 2 will be rendered if the condition is what, false. So it's just like if else statement. So the expression 1 is the if, expression 2 is the else. So you get that now. So let's see. So here's the condition: customer age, if it's greater or equals to 18, then what we want to do is we want to console the log. Let me just copy what I have here. I'll console the log this. You see that now? That means if the condition evaluates to true, then this is going to be executed. But if the condition evaluates to false, then we have to provide the else. So that's why hence this double column here. So here we'll now pass in this what do you call it, the second expression. So that this I is going to look like, guys. This I is going to look like. So that means if customer age is greater or equals to 18, then this expression here will be what, executed. But if it is not greater or equals to 18, I mean the customer age now, then this else statement is going to be executed. So let's see it on our console and let's see how true it is. All right, so you see, sorry, you are not eligible, or sorry, you are not qualified to take alcohol. All right, so now aside from using console, I can save this value here, this string value. I can save it or attach it to a variable. So now, instead of doing console.log, let's say I don't want to console it directly, I can do something like this. Let me remove the string. sorry, the console method there, something like this. So you see, this is a string value, this is string value, and also this is string value. So this is expression 1 and expression 2. So what I want to do is this. uh, I want to save all of this or assign all of this to a variable. I want to assign all of this to what? A variable. So I'll just say const, and let me just say result equals this. You see that now? So let me comment this if here, or let's leave it. Let's leave it. So now you see, now we have the ternary operator here. Everything that we have here after the assignment operator is assigned to this variable called what? Result. All right. So now we are saying it is the same thing as this if else statement, but it's just that the difference between this if else statement and ternary operator is that this is an expression. So you can use if else statement as what? An expression. That is where ternary operator what comes in. That is where ternary operator comes in. So now if you look, this is the condition here, and we'll say if customer age is greater or equals to 18, then we want to have this expression, first expression here. So the first expression is going to be assigned to this variable. So which now the condition or whatever expression, the expression will, or let me use this way. Okay, if the condition evaluates to true, then this first expression will be um will be assigned to this variable. But if the condition is false, then the second expression will be assigned to the variable. All right, I hope you get it. So let us see it in the console now. Let's see it in the console. So yeah, instead of doing, I'm just going to console. I'll console the log result now. I'll console the log result. So now let's see what we have here. Can I see? It's still the same thing. You see, it's still the same thing. So now these expressions are, this expression is conditionally assigned to the result variable based on what? The condition that we have here. All right, based on the condition. So if I change the age value from 12 to, let's say, um 22 now, and I save and come here, look at what we have. You are qualified to take alcohol. But now the difference between this if else statement and the ternary operator is this. Now notice that this is a block of code. This is a block of code. We are not assigning this to a variable at all. We are not assigning this to a variable, and there's no way we can be able to assign it to a variable except we have to go through some, some strange parts, like probably creating a variable and okay, creating a variable and making it undefined. Then you can now define it inside of this block here. It's a long process. Why doing that when we can use what? Ternary what? Operator. So you get that now. So notice here in the if else statement, we are not assigning you are qualified to take alcohol to a variable, because that is stressful. We are not assigning to a variable. We just console the log it, and the same thing too for the else. So this is a statement. But we want to also perform something like this in an expression way, such that the expression one, so that the expression one can be conditionally, assigned to what? To this variable based on the evaluation of the condition. So if the evaluation of the condition is true, then this expression one will be assigned to what? Result. And if it is not, the second expression will be assigned to what? This result. So if you console the log result, so result can hold any possible expression here based on what? The evaluation of the condition, which is different from what? If else statement. So ternary operator in JavaScript is a shorthand for if else statement. It's a shorthand for if else statement. All right, it's a shorthand for if else statement. So let's move on. I think we have done, yeah, justice to this. We have done justice to this. All right, so let's move on, and we can even make what do you call it now? We can make the ternary operator a nested ternary operator, just like the way we have nested if else statement. All right. So let's say we have something like let score equals 18. Sorry, 85, and so okay, let grade now be equals to score if it is greater or equals to what, 90. If it is greater or equals to 90, we want it to be what, A. Else, if score is greater, I'm doing easier. If score is greater or equals to 80, then we want another condition here. We'll give it what, B, and we can continue like that. Else we'll give it what, let's just stop here. Else we give it C. So you see, it's like what they call it, multiple if else statement. So if I console the log grade now, let's see what we have. If I console the log grade, let me duplicate this, divide my screen. Yeah. Okay. Now can you see B? All right, B. Okay, good. We have B here, but if I change it to, let's say, um 40, we'll have what, C. So you see that now. So this is like a multiple if else statement, but of course I won't advise that you use ternary operator to do multiple if else statement. Just use the normal, you know, if if else statement for multiple statements instead of using what do you call it, ternary operator, because for multiple if else statement it's like you are creating different conditions. You are creating multiple conditions. You are creating multiple conditions. So we also did that in the ternary operator here, whereby we say, okay, if grade, we say if the score is greater or equals to 90. That means if the score is greater or equals to 90, that means it will be what, considered as what, a A grade. Then double column, where we are supposed to have an alternative, then we now created another what they call it, a condition here, and say, okay, if the score is greater or equals to what, 80, then the score will be what, B. But if it is less than 80, then the grade will be C. So but I won't advise you use ternary operator to do multiple statement. So I advise you use multiple if else statement for that. All right. But if it's something straightforward like this, so just use ternary operator for that. All right. So now let's go over to function now. I hope you understand this up to this point. I hope you understand it, guys. That's the general and Mr. Kenne.
Ah, yes.
Okay.
Yes, please.
What do you say?
Yes, please.
Okay, okay,
I've
all right.
understood.
Okay, okay, all right, good, good. So let's look at function. So we are getting close gradually. So hopefully this week we should be able to touch loop and array and object for this week. Then by next week we'll rush into Dome. We'll get to Dome. All right. So let me just comment all these consoles that I have here. Or let me comment this if a statement first. Comment this. All right. Let me comment the console result and also the same thing too with the grade. All right. So now let's look at function. Let's look at function. There's my note. So function. Let me accept this person. All right. So now function. All right. So what is function? Function is a block of reusable code designed to perform a particular task. Function is a block of reusable code designed to perform a particular task. Functions are fundamental building blocks in JavaScript, allowing you to summarize or sum up a set of instructions into a single unit and execute them whenever needed. All right, so function can take inputs, parameter, perform actions, and return a value. So we are just going to look at an introduction to function today. So hopefully when we get to some extent in document object model, which is DOM, then I will reintroduce function again, but in an advanced um, version. All right. So, but let's just look at the basic or fundamental, or yes, fundamental. Let's have a fundamental understanding of function. All right. So, function. Let me use another note here now. Function is a reusable block of code designed to perform a specific task. So, function helps in organizing code, improving reusability, and making debugging easier. All right. So please take note. Function is a reusable block of code. That is the major emphasis that I want you to pay attention to. It is a reusable block of code. That means you can reuse it as many times as you desire. So all right. So it holds relatable codes. It holds relatable code. So we can use function to organize code, to improve reusability, and to make debugging very, very, very easy. All right. So that is the use case of what of function. So yeah, it says so remember a variable holds a value, but a function can hold one or more complete lines of code, e.g., something like this. So which we are going to look at shortly. So let's look at types of function here. We have named function. We have named function. These are the typical function defined with name. They can be called by their name anywhere in the scope where they are defined. Please take note. These are the typical functions. These are the typical functions defined with a name. They can be called by their name anywhere in the scope where they are defined. So, under the named function, we have what we call function declaration. Function declaration or declaring a function. Function declaration. So, there are several ways we can declare a function. Number one is using function declaration, still under the named function. Function what? Declaration. Or you can also call it a named function. A named function. A named function. So let's come here. So a named function. So I'll start with one. Function declaration, correct. So function declaration can also be known as a named function. So function declaration is defined using the function keyword followed by a name. So we are going to look at the basic types of function and the basic use of them. All right, we are not going to go into advance tonight. All right, so function declaration is defined using the function keyword. So here you have to use the function keyword. So I'll say function like this. So this is the function keyword. Then followed by the name of the function. So now when it comes to naming a function is dependent on the codes that are in the function body. Because if we say code and function is a reusable block of code, so function actually holds relatable code. So the relatable codes will determine the name of the function. It's like someone have a question here. um of course the recording will be available now. The recording will be available, so we are safe, eh? The recording will be available. All right, so yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome. All right, back to our conversation. So here we have a function keyword, and the name of the function is determined by the relatable codes that are in the function body. So let's say, for example, you have a relatable codes to sum um, a relatable code that sums numbers together. You can call that function add or sum or total. Or if you have a relatable codes in the function body that helps you to perform something, you can call the name of the function based on the relatable codes that you have there. So it has to have meaning. The name of the function has to have meaning. You get that now? It's just like the way we name variable. Variable has to have meaning. It has to describe the value that the value that is being assigned to the variable. So the same thing too for function. The name of the function has to has meaning based on the code that is being stored in the function block. All right. So now let's say, for example, let's do something very simple. I want to create a function like greet. So a function, then the name is what? Greet. Then we'll have what do you call it now? A curly brace here. Then I'll do, sorry, a parenthesis, my bad, a parenthesis, then a curly brace. So inside of the curly brace, I'll just do console.log. um okay, let's do double colon. When I say my name is John Doe. All right, so you see that now. So see, my name is John Doe. So the name of the function is greeting. It really depicts the code that is inside of what the function. So now this curly brace that we have here after the parenthesis, the curly brace here, actually called the function body. So the code that you want to execute has to be inside of the function body, or has to be inside of the curly brace. So that makes it what? A function body. All right. All right. Okay. All right. Let's move on. So, don't worry if you have issues with light, in your country. It's fine. Like I said, the video is recorded. So we are recording this live class. So after the class, I'm going to send you the recording. All right. So let's move on. So here we have greeting. So now this greeting, now based on what we have inside of the curly brace, which is the function body, and now it informs us the kind of name we should name our function. You see that now? Greet. So now there's one thing about function that makes it different from every other data type. If you notice, we've looked at primitive data types such as the number, string, boolean, null, and what do you call it? What do you call it now? Okay, string, boolean, number, undefined, and null. So we've looked at these five primitive data type. So under the non-primitive data type, we have function, we have array, and we have what object. So of all the data types that we are going to be looking at, one data type is actually peculiar compared to the others. Why is it peculiar to the others? Why is it peculiar or different from others? I'm talking about the function now. Why is it different? The reason why it is different is because one, function can be invoked, meaning can be called. You get that now? There are other differences too, actually, which we are going to look at in the advanced section of what function. But just know this, that function can be what invoked, it can be called. All right. So once you invoke a function, whatever code that you have inside of the function body is what will be executed. You get that now? So the code that you have in the function body or in the curly brace is what will be executed when you would invoke a function or when you call a function. So you can either use it interchangeably, invoke or what call. All right. So now we have created a function, then we have the code that want to execute inside of the function body. So now we want to now execute the code. So to execute the code, we have to what invoke the function. So how do we invoke the function? We invoke the function or call the function by its name. We call the function by its name. All right. So here now I will just do greeting. Okay, greet. Sorry. You see that now? You call it by its name, and look at what we have here. I My name is what? John Doe. All right. So this is what we call function declaration. It consists of a function keyword, a function name, a parenthesis. Can you see a function keyword and a function name? So this makes it what a function declaration. All right. This is a function declaration. So this is just a basic example of what function. We have not even started working with parameters or working with arguments, return statements, and all of those things, which we are going to look at in this today's class. I hope the time will allow me to be able to address that. So number one, function declaration. So you see that now. Another one advantage of function declaration is that function declaration can be hoisted. So when we talk about hoisted, meaning hoisted to the top. So when we talk about hoisting or hoisted to the top, it means that it can be called before it is declared. I love that. So it means that one peculiar um, um, difference between function declaration and every other function we are going to be looking at now is that function declaration can be called before it is what declared. That is what we call hoisting or hoisted. You get that now? So here, let's see what we have here. It's a hoisted. It's a function declaration are hoisted, meaning they are moved to the top of their scope during the compilation phase. This allows you to call the function before it is defined in your code. You get that now? Use cases. Function declaration are typically used when you want to define a function that can be called from anywhere in the scope where it is defined. They provide more predictability in terms of hoisting. All right now. So that is one beautiful use case about on function declaration, that it can be hoisted, meaning it can be called before it is what initialized. But if you look at this case now, first of all, we declare it before we what called it, and we can also call it before we declare it. So can you see it is being called before we what declared, and it will still work. Why? Because function declaration is what hoisted to the top, which doesn't happen for every other function. So let's bring this down. All right, good. So the next one we are going to look at is anonymous function, or let's do function expression now. Function expression. Function expression. Now, function expression can be assigned to a variable. Function expression can be assigned to a variable. It can be assigned to a variable. All right. it can be assigned to a variable. So let's move on. So let's see, if you notice for the function declaration, it is not assigned to any variable. This is a function, this function declaration. So let me show you a typical example of function expression. So I'm just going to comment this because I'm going to use this name again. So let me comment it. So let's do it here. Mm, I'm going to comment this. So this is a multi-line comment. All right. So here I'm going to do the same thing here. So I'll just say const greet. So this is the function. This is the variable const greet. Then I'll now have a function here like this. So let me just copy console. Okay. Hi, my name is John Doe. All right. Now look at what is the difference between function expression and what function declaration. I want you to look at it very well. You will see an obvious difference between them. For function declaration, we have it function declaration is declared with a function keyword followed by the name of the function. But whereas for function expression, the function expression does not have a name. Can you see? We just have function, no name. So the name that we are supposed to pass after the function keyword is what we now use as what a variable. So that makes this function nameless. So a nameless function is called anonymous function. A nameless function is called what? Anonymous function. A function without a name is what we call anonymous function. So function expression consists of an anonymous function assigned to a variable or to the property of an object. All right, now, so we assign this to what? A variable. So you see that now, this is an anonymous function assigned to what? A variable. So if you look at the note that we have here, anonymous function, these are functions without a name. They are often used as arguments to other functions or assigned to what? A variable or properties of what? An object, to a property of an object. All right, now, so that is anonymous function. So let's come back. No. So here, function expression, please take note. Function expression consists of anonymous function assigned to what? A variable. You see that now? So, all right. So if we want to do this, if we want to get the or execute the code that is inside of the function body, all we just have to do is to what? Invoke the function by its variable name, greet, and you are going to see my name is John Doe. But the thing is, function expression is not what? Hoisted. Function expression is not hoisted, meaning it cannot be called before it is defined. It cannot be called before its definition. So you can't call a function expression before you define the function. It's going to throw error. It's going to throw you an error. You get that now? But for function declaration, you can actually call the function before you what? Create the function or declare the function. Why? Because it is hoisted to the top. But function expression is not what? Hoisted. You cannot call it before its definition or before it is being declared or created. All right. So you have to um first of all define it or create it before you can what? Call it. So now let's try to call function expression before it is being what? Defined. So if you save, you are going to get error. Can you see? Cannot access grid before initialization. It means that you cannot call the function before you initialize the function. So you can't access it. All right. So that is it. And let's look at what we have here. Not hoisted. So function expressions are not hoisted, meaning they cannot be called before they are defined in your code. So use cases for using function expression is that they are often used when you want to assign a function to a variable or when you want to define a function conditionally. They are also commonly used as arguments for other functions or for creating closures. So all of this we are going to go in depth when we get to function, the advanced section of what function. So in terms of use cases, use function declaration when you need to define a function that can be called anywhere in the scope, especially if you need to call it before it is defined. Then use function expression when you need more flexibility, such as assigning a function to a variable, or passing it as an argument to another function, or defining it conditionally. All right. So now let's look at the last function, which is what arrow function. So arrow function is introduced in ES6, ECMAScript 6. So arrow function provide a concise syntax for writing function. They are particularly useful for inline and callback what function. So all of these callback function, higher order function, closure, and all of these things. When we get to the advanced aspect of function, we are going to look at it in depthly, right? So let's just look at an introduction to JavaScript, and which we've started already. So let's move on. So let's look at arrow function now. So I'm just going to comment this part. I'll comment this part. Then we have three arrow function. So for the arrow function is similar to um, it is similar to what do you call it now? It is similar to function expression. All right. Arrow function is similar to function expression. So just a slight difference. So let's go over it. So say const greet equals. So instead of using a function keyword now in this case, where if you notice we have what for the function expression we are having function keyword. For the function declaration we are having function keyword. So for the arrow function, instead of using a function keyword, rather we'll use a curly bracket, sorry, a parenthesis, so followed by an arrow like this. So the arrow consists of an equals, then a greater than sign. So this one now, this arrow is a replacement or a substitute of what the function keyword. Is a substitute of the function keyword. Then we can now proceed to do console.log. Hi, my name is John Doe. Then we will invoke the function like this, and we are good to go. Can you see that now? Hi, my name is what John Doe. So this how function expression, sorry, arrow function actually what works. All right. So now let's just now look at function with parameter. It's very key. Function with what parameter? Functions with parameter. So we are going deeper little by little. So once we look at function with parameter, and we look at what they call it, return statement, then we can end for the day. And hopefully I'm supposed to give you an assignment this week. So this week I'm supposed to give you an assignment this week. So by next week, or before the end of next week, before the end of this week, you should be able to submit it. All right. So let me cross check if I'm still recording. All right, good. I am. So function with what parameter? So we've looked at the first phase that we looked at was function without parameter. This is to help us better understand the three basic types of function that we have: function declaration, function expression, and arrow function. So um now function with what parameter in JavaScript. So a function parameter is a placeholder. A function parameter is a placeholder for values that are passed into the function whenever it is called. These values are known as arguments. All right. Now let's see how we can enhance the function that we have here. Let's say we can enhance it by having or using parameters and what argument. All right. Parameters and argument. If you notice here in the first phase where we have these functions here, what we just do, we consider log I, my name is John Doe. My name is John Doe. And also one thing I didn't tell you is that you can invoke a function as many times as you want. So let's say for example, let me uncomment this part here and show you what I'm talking about. Um let me uncomment this part. So now if you look at this, we have I, my name is John Doe. Why? Because we are saying it once here. The reason is because we invoked it once. So if I invoke it like 4 times, if I invoke it 4 times, that means what is inside of the curly brace, what is inside of the function body, the code that is inside of the function body will be executed what 4 times. So you can see I, my name is John Doe appearing what 4 times. The reason is because we call it what 4 times. So you can call a function multiple times as you want. You get that now? So now the thing is, disadvantage is, if you notice, when we call it 4 times, it is displaying the same output. It is displaying the same thing that we have in the function body. There's no dynamism in there. So the same name, John Doe, John Doe, John Doe, John Doe. But the thing is, what if I want to that anytime I call the function, I want the function to be called with a different name. So instead of John Doe, John Doe, John Doe, John Doe, it's going to be maybe probably I, my name is John Doe, I, my name is Alice, I, my name is Bob, and all of those things. So different name to make it dynamic. So how do you think we can do that? So it's very simple. So let me bring this back. So let's come here. So this is why we need function parameter, which is a placeholder for values that are passed into the function when it is called. So let's use a function declaration in this case now. So I'll just say const. I'll still do okay. I said function declaration. So that will be function keyword followed by what the function name greet. So here, instead of so in this function where we declare the function, this parenthesis, that is where we are going to pass in what the parameter. And like I said, the parameter represent a placeholder. So it's like a placeholder or a variable of a value that will be passed into the function when you call the function. So now in this parenthesis here, I'm going to pass a parameter. So let's say for example, I want that my name is John Doe, the name John Doe, I want it to be dynamic. Instead of having John Doe, like we call the function multiple times and it is still the name John Doe that we are getting, but we want to be dynamic with it such that anytime we call it, we want to call it with a different name and it's going to output a different name. All right, so to do that, we need to have a parameter in this parenthesis. And let's say, okay, since it's the name that we actually want to alter, so we have to give it a parameter of what name. All right, we give it a parameter of name. So here now, I'm just going to do console.log and I'll say, let me use a backtick. Let me use a backtick because I'm going to do string interpolation if you still remember. So I'll just do something like this. So I'll say I, my name is, all right, my name is. So inside of the function body, where we have the code, where we are going to, where we are writing, where the code will be written, inside of the function body, we are going to pass in what the name parameter. All right, the name parameter. So here now we have greeting, then we have a parameter called name. So this name now will be a placeholder for the value that we are going to pass into the function where we call the function. So now let's call the function. I'm going to call the function greeting or greet. I'll call the function with what? John. See that? I'll call the function with John. So now this is the actual value. You see that John, you see, is a string. This is the actual value that this name placeholder is what representing, or that this name parameter is placeholding, if there's any English like that. So the name now, or the name parameter, is the placeholder for what? This John value. So this value that we have here can also be called arguments. All right, it can be called what? Arguments. So this is the argument for the name parameter. So when I was talking about argument, it still mean value. All right, so it still mean value. So we pass in the argument when we call the function or we invoke the function. All right. So if I save this now, now you're going to see, hi, my name is John. So that means I can call this multiple time with a different value of, let's say, Alice, Bob, and Smith. Let's use that word. Now watch. My name is John. My name is Alice. My name is Bob. My name is Smith. So you see how simple it is. Very, very, very simple. All right. So I can convert this function declaration to function expression and also to arrow function. So let's see how it works. Let's see how it works. So I'm just going to do this. I'll say const greet, then function, an anonymous function now. Then, okay, I'll pass in the name parameter. Then I'm just going to, all right, good. Then if you save, can you see still the same thing, right? That is for function expression. So let's do last but not the least for array function. So I'll say const greet equals a parenthesis. Then I'll do, all right, okay, hold on. I'll pass in the name, pass in the name, yep. And if you save, still the same thing, guys. Still the same thing. So, and the thing is, let's move on. I'm going to show you, there are a lot of things that we're going to look at on concerning parameter, but we will not look at everything here because there's still some things that we've not done, like object, like array, like some of the ES6 topics like spread, rest operator, and all of those things. But I'm going to show you some basic use case of parameters, of function parameter. So we've looked at the basic function parameter. So the function that only accept one argument. So now we are going to look at multiple parameters. So a function that can take multiple what parameters. So I believe I've been able to explain this to the level of your understanding. So let me make this. Okay, let me comment this one too as well. So here I will say function declaration with parameters, or with parameter. So I'm just going to copy this. I'll copy, I'll paste it here. So this one will be function expression, and this one are, all right, good. So I think we are good to go. So let's look at function, or let's say multiple parameters. Parameters. All right, good. So multiple parameters. So let's say we want to add two or three numbers together using function. If we want to add two or three numbers together, now let me tell you something. When I said function is used to hold relatable codes and they are reusable, it's a reusable block of code. Now, the aspect of reusable block of code, you might not really understand it. Let me show you something. Let's say I want to add three, two or more values together. Now, without function or without using function, let us look at it the primitive way. So what I'm going to do is this. Please pay attention. All right. What I'm going to do is this. Before, as in without using function, if I want to add two or more numbers together, what I'm going to do is I'm going to assign each of the number value to a variable. So I will do let num1 equals, let's say, 13, and let's say let num2 equals 72, and let's say num3 equals 34. All right. Now to now add this together, now I can just say const or let anyone sum equals num1 plus num2 plus num3, right? And if I console the log sum, let's see what we are going to get. We are getting 109. Now, this way, if I want to replicate this again, guys, if I want to replicate this again with three numbers, what am I going to do? I'll have to type this again. You get that now? I have to type it again. Probably use a different variable or still use the same variable but assign a different value to it. So this is not reusable. You get that now? It's not reusable. So what we are going to do is this is where function comes in that allows us to reuse code multiple times. So now what we are going to do is we'll create a function that we receive three parameters, which we can call num1, num2, num3. Then anytime we call the function, we are going to be calling the function with a different value. That makes the function reusable. Unlike this one that is not what reusable. You get that now? So let me show you now. I can say function. Let me use function declaration, and I'll call it add. And here I will give it what num1, num2, and what num3. All right. And here I will say console.log. Okay, let's not use return now. Let's not use, or let's just do something like const sum equals num1 plus num2, then plus num3. All right. So now, mind you, the one that we declared up here and the sum that we declared here is different from the one that we have here. Oh. All right, is different from the one that we have here. So this is a global variable. It's a global variable, but this one is a local variable. Why is it a local variable? Because it is locally scoped, or it is locally scoped to what this function called attach. I'm sorry, add. It is limited to this function. So any variable that you declared inside of the function can only be accessed in the function, or any variable that you declared in a block of code, whether it is an if block, else block, for block, if else loop block or function block, that variable that is declared in that block can only be accessed within that block but not outside of the block. So the sum that we declared here is different from the sum that we declared out here. This one that we declared in the function is locally scoped to what this function. All right. So now let's move on. So here I'm just going to do console dot what? Console.log then sum. So here I'm just going to do this add. So now add, I will do 13, 72, and what? 34. If you save, we are still getting the same result. So I can call this multiple times now with different what? Arguments or value. I can say 12. Okay, I think I've used 12 before. Let me just say 4, 3, and what? 2. If you save, voila. Can you see? 9. So let me clear this out or probably comment it. So you will see that's for multiple what? Parameters. For multiple parameters. So concerning parameters, I'm going to stop at number 3. We still have another one. We have function with rest parameter, function with object as a parameter, function with destructured object, function with array as a parameter, and function with destructured array as what? A parameter. Okay, so let's just stop at the third one, which is function default parameters. All right, so stop at default parameters. But I want to believe that you understand this up to this point. All right, I hope you are still there. All right, just the general, I say. So I believe you understand this up to this point. So let's look at default parameters. So let me comment this function that we have here. Uh-huh. So the next one we are going to look at is default parameters. So when we talk about default parameters, what does it mean? So now, if no argument is provided, JavaScript sets the parameter to undefined. However, we can set a default value to avoid that. So now let's say for example we have still the same greet. Yes. So say I have a function and I call it greet. Yeah. And let's say I give it a name parameter and I say console.log I blah 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 what we did here. So now I now call the function. So probably maybe I intentionally did not add the value or the argument, or I forgot to add the argument. Look at what we are going to get. We are going to get my name is what? Undefined. Do you see that now? Since we didn't define an argument or a value when we call the function, you get that now? But we have a parameter. So the parameter, which is a placeholder for the value of the function when we call the function, since we don't have a value in the function when it is being called, that means the name here now is not representing, it's not a placeholder to any value. So rather it's going to give you what? Undefined, because there's no value assigned to what? To this name parameter. You get that now? So that's why we have my name is what? Undefined. But in order for us to to avoid that, so in the event probably you don't you probably it was an oversight, you didn't add a value or an argument to your function when you call it. And sometimes there are also some higher use case to this default parameter, aside from probably maybe it was an oversight or you intentionally decide to omit the argument or the value. Um, so sometimes you might be fetching a data from an API, and probably a particular maybe maybe a particular property does not come with a value or whatever. So instead of giving you undefined, it is better you probably have a default value for it's better you have a value, or let me call it set a default value to be able to avoid the issue of what? Undefined. So now in this case, now where we have name, I can give it a default value of, let's say, John. All right, I'll give it a default value of John. So this means that when I call the function without an argument or a value, the function is going to default to what? The default value that I assign to what? This parameter. So if I save now, instead of having undefined, we are going to get what? My name is what? John. All right. But now if I call the function with, let's say, an actual argument now, a value. Let's say I call it with Alice. So now, since I call this function with Alice, so there will not be need for what the default value. The default value only works when you call the function without a value or an argument. But if you call the function with an argument or a value, that means there will not be need for what the default value, even though it is present. So if I save this now, so you no longer say I, my name is John. Now you are saying I, my name is what Alice. So that is what default what parameters. So we have many, but we are going to look at that little by little. All right. So let me give this functional parameter. So this will be 4.2, and this will be 4.3. All right. So let's move on. So we are getting there. So let me comment this one. So the next one we are going to look at is return statement. So let's look at it and we close. So function with return statement. So function with return statement. So look at this and we can end the class. So what do we mean by uh, how they call it? What do we mean by return? Return. There are a lot of things concerning return, but I will make sure I make it simpler. Then when we get to the advanced, we can start talking about how we can return an object, an array. So how we can return a function. So no, a lot of things like that. But let's just look at the basic use of what return. All right. So now the return statement in JavaScript, the return statement in JavaScript function is used to send a value back to the caller. It is used to send a value back to the caller. So when a function reaches a return statement, it stops execution and returns the specified value. Now let's take for example this greeting. Okay, let me comment this part. Let me comment this. Let's take for example this. Okay, let me use function. All right. Function declaration. Let me still use that. Greet, and we have name here. Now let's say we have return I. My name is that. So I'll just say greet. Then I'll do John. All right. So now watch. Now the return statement is used to send a value back to the caller. What's the caller? The caller is what? The function. You get that now? The caller is the function. The caller is the function. So what the return statement does is to send a value. So the value can be anything. It can be any data type. It can be a single string. It can be a long string. We can return many things. We can return um, primitive data type, that's the number, the string, the boolean, undefined, null, and all that. We can return any value, and we can also return even values from non-primitive data types such as function, object, and array. That means we can return an array from a function, we can return an object from a function, and we can even return function from a function. So it's not necessarily returning, it's not limited to returning strings or numbers or primitive data type. All right, so it can return any value that falls within the two data type category, which is non-primitive and primitive. So now that is the use case of a return. So return, what it does is to send a value back to what, to the sender, or sorry, to the caller. So and once it sends a value back to the caller, it is going to terminate or stops execution. Here it says that when a function reaches the return statement. So let's say, for example, you have a code here. Let's say you have something like let a be equals to 5, and you say let b be equals to 10, and you can now do console.log a plus b, and if you save, first of all you get what, 15. You see that you get 15. Now this is it here. It says that when a function is being executed, the moment it reaches the return statement, it stops the execution of the function and return a value. So it stops the execution of a function and return a specific or a specified value. All right, simple, very simple. So, and mind you, whenever you are using a return statement in JavaScript, in function, make sure the return statement is the last code in your browser, so in your function. Make sure the return statement is the last code in your function. Make sure it is the last code in your function, because if it is not the last code in your function, and probably maybe there's another code after it in the function, you will notice that the console.log that we have after the return has been grayed out. And if you over on the console, you are seeing unreachable code detected, meaning that any code that is written after the return statement is considered unreachable code. It cannot be reachable, it cannot be detected by the function. You get that now? Because once the function is executed, the moment it reaches the return statement, it stops the execution and return a specified value. So any other function or any other code that you have after the return statement will not be reached at all. It will be considered as if it is non-existent. It doesn't even exist. All right, so now if I save this now, so you won't see the console anymore. The 15 that we have here, you won't see it anymore. Why? Because we place it in a place where it is considered as what, unreachable, after the what, the return statement. So if you want to console something and still return a value, make sure what you are consoling is before the return statement. All right, so now we have 15. So now this value that we return, this value that we return, I just use this to cite an example. I'm going to clear it very soon. That's the a, the b variable, and all that. So okay, let me just clear it now, so I think you properly understand everything I just explained. So now if I return I, now I'm returning this string value. My name is blah blah blah. So I'm returning this value. So I'm returning it back to what? To the caller, which is what, this greet. So that means this value that I return now is in this caller function here. But how can we access it? Because I've called the function, we can't see it in the console. So there's a difference between returning the value and consoling the value, so we can be able to see it in the console panel. Because right now we are still working with what? The console. Later on, we'll be working with the browser's user interface instead of what? The console. All right. So let's look at. So now the value has been returned or sent back to the caller. So how can we get it now? There are two ways we can do it. We can wrap this function that we call here, this function that we invoked. We can wrap it inside of a console, inside of the console.log, we can wrap it inside like this. Because the thing is, like I said when we return this value is returned and sent as a value back to what, to the caller. So it's in this caller. So in order for us to get this value, we can nest it inside of what, a console.log like this, and we are going to get what, my name is John in the console. If you can do it like this, or let me comment this, or you can do it like this, you can assign it to a variable. So when you call the function, you can assign it to a variable. You can just call it result. I hope I've not declared result. Oh, it's like I've declared result before. If you notice, can you see? I've declared it before, result. So let me call it output instead. Output, out, output. All right. So now you see, I call the function with this argument. I assign it to a variable called output. So when I return from this function, it sends a value back to the caller, and that value is assigned to this variable. So I'll just come here, I'll do console the log output, and you save. Can you see my name is what, John? All right, my name is what, John. So let's move on. So you can see how we did that for function expression, sorry, declaration. We can also do the same thing too for function expression. So let me duplicate this and comment this one. So yeah, I'm going to convert this to function expression now. So I'll say const greet, then I'll remove this one here. So if you save, you see what, the same thing, still the same thing. So I'll also duplicate this and I will do it for arrow function too as well. And I'll come here, I'll remove the function. I'll do this. You see that my name is John. You see it worked. But I want you to digest this first. Let's not compound our head. Let's digest this. Tomorrow we'll continue and look at a better way to use return statement in what, arrow function. Because there are two types of return state there are two ways we can return a value from a function. It's either we use implicit return or we use explicit return. So more on implicit and explicit tomorrow. So that will be the first thing we are going to look at tomorrow. Then we'll now look at loops, and if time permits us, we can touch a bit on array. All right now. So does everyone okay? You want to say something, Mr. General?
Say, I am asking whether you can share the PDF of the HTML for us.
The PDF of what?
HTML, the HTML, the your 2 weeks boot camp.
Okay. Okay. Are you not the Joseph, right? You are the Joseph, right?
Yes, I am the Joseph.
Okay. I'm going to send that to you privately. That one
Okay,
is
okay.
HTML and CSS. We are dealing with
Yeah,
JavaScript here,
yeah,
so I'll send that to you
yeah.
privately. All right. So
Okay.
okay.
For me, I don't want to always watch the tutorials. I want to look at the test and then I'll implement it. So if I'm not getting the results, then I'll go and watch the tutorial in addition. That will make me understand it better.
Okay. All right. No problem. No problem.
Yeah.
All right. All right.
Thank you
Yeah.
very much.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So guys, we have come to the end of today's class. So tomorrow we'll meet same time, 7 p.m. All right. So bye for now.